All right, guys, welcome back into the channel. It's time to break down and go over all the PFF grades from the Packers versus Minnesota Vikings loss in Week 17, brought to you by BetUS. More on that later. A very unfortunate loss for the Green Bay Packers that now begs the question, when playoff time comes around, will they be able to hang around with the better team? Because the Packers' playoff forecast at this point looks like if they were to make it to the Super Bowl, they'd have to beat the three teams, and the only three teams that they've lost to this season, starting with the Philadelphia Eagles, then one of the Vikings or the Lions, and then the other of the Vikings or the Lions. The Packers' playoff path could look like that, but that's way far in advance. The Packers have still yet to beat a team with a better record than them, 0-5 on the season. But all that matters is getting into the playoffs. And once you're there, most of the regular season doesn't matter much. It's about getting hot at the right time. And I still have confidence in this young football team. But a lot of the issues that they have, they definitely need to clean up, or else they will not go far in the playoffs. All the self-inflicted wounds, their star players not playing up to par against higher opponents, and then also getting them prepared. And that falls on Matt LaFleur with the scheme. So we're going to dive down into the PFF grades from yesterday's game. And every episode, I go over my predictions, offense and defense, who I think the highest graded players will be. On offense, I think it's going to be Romeo Doubs. I think he had an excellent finish to this game. Tucker Kraft, although I think only 2 receptions, I thought he had a nice game. And then Josh Jacobs kind of had to go away from the run after being down 17 points. Sounds like a reoccurring theme in our games against these higher opponents. And then also, I'm going to predict a low grade on offense, and I think you guys already know who it's going to be, and it's going to be Jayden Reed. I think he had 1 reception for 6 yards, had a drop on 4th and 5. I think he was targeted 4 times, and the downfall of Jayden Reed in the second half for the last 5 weeks, man, it's pretty crazy, and he's definitely got to play better for this offense to be as good as we once remembered. As for the defense, the 3 highest graded players, I mean, this is by far obvious. Edgerrin Cooper at the top. I mean, this guy seemed like the only player on defense that was consistently making plays. I also think Carrington Valentine should be somewhat up there, but I'm not sure if he's going to be one of the top 3. Carrington Valentine did have a nice interception, but he also got targeted a lot later in the game. Justin Jefferson had a lot of receptions against him. So I'm thinking one of Valentine or Stokes could be one of the higher players on defense, but I don't expect high defensive grades at all. And then I also think Carl Brooks, the only player to really get a sack. And I believe a bunch of our edge rushers were left without any pressures in this game, which is inexcusable. Getting no pressure on Sam Darnold is a recipe for disaster. And then I think the lowest, or one of the lowest graded defenders, again, just like offense, not much of a surprise here, will be Javon Bullard. I think it was a pretty terrible game for him. All right, so without further ado, let's dive right into it. Let's bring up the screen and we'll start on offense. So quick reminder, Doubs, Kraft, and Jacobs, and I think Reed will be near the bottom. So Doubs is the top rated player. Jordan Love, number 2. That surprises me a little bit. I believe Jordan Love actually had a higher QBR, not quarterback rating, but QBR, the ESPN metric, than Sam Darnold, which I don't know how, but it seems like PFF liked the way Jordan Love played as well, which if you take away some of the drops, right, maybe it looks a lot better. Maybe the Packers win this game. If Jayden Reed goes on to catch that 4th and 5, they go on to score, and we were talking about a whole different result of this game. Jordan Love at a 72.3. Josh Jacobs at the top here. Actually surprises me to see Zach Tom. I feel like he got beat a few times, which we're not used to seeing, but he still is our highest graded lineman. Tucker Kraft at 7, so I thought he'd be near the top, but he's at number 7. And we are correct on Jayden Reed being the lowest graded player at a 46.1, man. It's just, I hate to see it. You know, you hate to see it. Elton Jenkins, a 71.3, good pass block, above average or slightly above average run block. Emmanuel Wilson, 66.7. Pass block of a 28.2. I saw a snap where Jordan Love ran a play action. I believe it was on 2nd and 13, which it's like, why are we running play action there? But Emmanuel Wilson completely missed the free rusher on the right side, like went to the completely wrong side. Jordan Love had to somehow escape that sack and then kind of throw it into the dirt. So it didn't look like a good pass blocking day from Emmanuel Wilson. Tucker Kraft, we had talked about. Malik Heath, 15 snaps, got a touchdown, right? Like if Jayden Reed's going to be dropping passes and Malik Heath is going to be catching touchdowns, you know, get this guy on the field at this point. 65.2. Bo Melton also had a couple nice catches, 16 snaps, 65.2 as well. Rasheed Walker, 64.0. He got beat a couple times. And the one thing I'll say about our offensive line, and this happened against the Lions, and it happened last night against the Minnesota Vikings, especially, it really only happens when we're on the road, is the Packers have to stop this whole run the play clock down to 0-1 when we're about to snap the ball. You got to get out of your huddle quicker. You got to get the play calls in quicker, whether that's on Matt LaFleur, whether that's in on Jordan Love, and you have to get through the huddle quicker. So then when you're up at the line of scrimmage, you can make your adjustment. You can do your protections. You can do your adjustments if you're Jordan Love. You can do your motions, right? They're doing it too late, and it brings the play clock when they're on the road down to 4 or 5 seconds before they're ready to snap, and it allows the defense to jump the snap every single time you're in that situation, and the Packers do it a lot. It's got to get fixed. It's an absolute detriment to this offense, and I feel like by this point, week 17, it should have been fixed, but it hasn't been, and it's honestly been a problem for the Packers. It stems way back to the Aaron Rodgers days, but so sometimes you see Rasheed Walker get beat really badly, but it's because the defender was able to jump the snap count, right? Dontavian Wicks, 62.5. Josh Myers, a 60.2. Horrible pass block, 42.5. Fitzpatrick saw 2 snaps. Sean Ryan, our lowest graded lineman here, but just slightly below average with a good pass block grade, poor run block grade. Chris Brooks saw 7 snaps. Ben Sims saw 3. So Luke Musgrave outsnapped Ben Sims, but wasn't graded well, 47.1. And then we talked about Jaden Reed. So as for blocking, one of the worst performances by this Packers offensive line. They have 4 sacks allowed. I think Jordan Love was only sacked 3 times, but PFF ties sacks to certain players. They don't do half sacks, so I don't really know how they have 4 there. But they also have 15 pressures allowed. Josh Myers allowed 4 pressures. And again, that also stems back to the snap count. The Lions did this with Pat O'Connor. I mean, he was in Josh Myers' face, like the moment the ball was snapped, before Josh could even snap his head up. And I'm sure the same thing happened in Minnesota. The Packers got to fix it. Rasheed Walker, 4 pressures allowed. Zach Tom, 3 pressures allowed. Emmanuel Wilson, 2 pressures allowed. So like I said, not a great pass blocking day from Emmanuel Wilson. Maybe they should have put more Chris Brooks in those situations, but Brooks also allowed a pressure, and Sean Ryan allowed a pressure as well. Back into the video, let's flip over to the defensive side of the football. My predictions for the highest grades are Edgerrin Cooper, one of Valentine or Stokes, Carl Brooks, and I believe the lowest or one of the lowest graded players on defense will be Javon Bullard. So let's dive right into it. And wow, Devontae Wyatt actually top. I didn't realize that he was playing so well before he left with a concussion, and wow, him leaving with injury definitely hurt. 12 snaps, had 4 pressures. I did not realize he was playing that well before he got hurt, and a 91.8 grade. Edgerrin Cooper, I'm surprised this grade's honestly this low. I think it's because he kind of got beat a decent bit in coverage. You see that 47.4, but his run defense, man, 91.5. Edgerrin Cooper had 8 tackles, 6 stops, I believe 4 of which were in the backfield, and only missed 1. Yeah, I see receptions already. Yeah, he got beat 7 times through the air, so not a great coverage day from Edgerrin Cooper. We'll look at the receptions right after we go over these grades. Carl Brooks is near the top here, 68.8, had 2 pressures and a sack. I mean, 20 pressures on the day just simply isn't enough. Isaiah McDuffie near the top, 65.1. Zane Anderson, 65.0. I never thought in the year of 2024, in a Week 17 game against a division rival, the loss of Zane Anderson on our defense would be something that would be talking about going, oh, it really hurt us. But it did, because it moved Javon Bullard back to safety, and that was a mess. So Zane Anderson in the 11 snaps was grading out, above average. Rashawn Gary, 63.3, only 2 pressures, need more out of him in this game. Eric Stokes was the highest graded corner on the team, so Valentine slightly down at number 10, just a poor tackle grade, but Stokes did grade out pretty well. Again, we'll look at coverages, but as I'm looking at it now, he only allowed 1 reception. He's actually been pretty solid the last few weeks. Did drop a couple interceptions that went right into his hands, so he's got to hang on to those, but 63.2. Valentine played 3 snaps. Kenny Clark, 62.5, did have 4 pressures. I didn't notice him getting 4 pressures, but we'd like to see, finish with a sack there. Xavier McKinney, 62.4, hasn't graded out well the last few weeks. When you look at him the last few weeks, earlier in the season, he has some high grades, and last week against New Orleans was pretty good, a 70.3, and these aren't terrible. These are all above average, but we expect more, considering what we saw to begin the season from Xavier McKinney, and we have a couple right around average games. Last 3 of 4, he's right around that average, so he needs to be better than that for this defense to play better as well. He's one of our better players on the defensive side of the football. Carrington Valentine, 62.4, poor run defense, poor tackle grade, Lucas Van Ness, not a single pressure, inexcusable. Got to get pressures out of our guys. Brenton Cox Jr., 29 snaps, poor grade, but did get 4 pressures. Keyshawn Nixon, poor grade, did get a pressure, also missed a tackle. TJ Slayton, 48.3, no pressures. Colby Wooden, 48.2, no pressures. Eric Wilson graded out very poorly and got beat through the air as well, 47.6. Poor coverage grade, 42.0. Aaron Mosby, 41.4, did have 2 pressures. Javon Bullard, surprisingly, wasn't the lowest graded player. Surprisingly, it was actually JJ Enagbari, who literally did nothing. He had 1 stop and no pressures, no tackles. 1 tackle, 1 stop. 37.4. But Javon Bullard, 37.7. Poor run defense, did tackle well. He had 10 tackles with 0 miss, so he did tackle well. But in coverage was abysmal, 41.1. Speaking of coverage, let's quickly look at coverages. So Keyshawn Nixon allowed 5 receptions on 8 targets for 55 yards. He allowed 1 on 2 to Jefferson for 7. He allowed 2 for 33 to Jordan Addison and 1 for 10 to Naylor. Edgerrin Cooper allowed 7 on 7 for 91 yards, 2 of which are to Jefferson. So, again, that just falls back on the Packers playing a lot of zone. I know the Packers don't have the right personnel right now, really, without Jair to play too much man coverage. But I still would like to see the Packers in this game plan man up Justin Jefferson more. Keyshawn Nixon, I thought, did a good job against him. So did Eric Stokes, surprisingly. If you have Justin Jefferson coming out of the slot or running a slant or running a mesh concept against a linebacker, I mean, he's going to win 10 out of 10 times pretty much, and that worked against Edgerrin Cooper. Hawkinson, he allowed a catch. Ham, Akers, Aaron Jones. So was that Akers catch on Edgerrin Cooper to finish the game? So Akers had a catch for 9, but I don't know if it was that catch. We'll look if he has any more on this list, if that was Edgerrin Cooper's responsibility there. Javon Bullard allowed 6 for 6 for 72 yards. They, of course, tied the Naylor touchdown to him, as they should. They tied the Addison touchdown to him, as they should, but Packers got to get pressure, and that wouldn't happen. And a catch to Hawkinson, a catch to Aaron Jones. Eric Wilson allowed 4 on 5 for 60. None to Jefferson, targeted once. 2 catches to Hawkinson for 40 yards. It seemed like he was playing 15 yards off the line of scrimmage, and Hawkinson had free reign over the middle there. Carrington Valentine allowed 5 catches on 5 targets for 43 yards, all to Justin Jefferson. Xavier McKinney allowed 3 catches on 4 targets, 2 to Naylor for 38 yards, and 1 to Ham for 2 yards. Eric Stokes allowed 1 catch for 4 yards to Aaron Jones. So again, nice game by Eric Stokes. Lucas Van Ness allowed a catch, and Enagbari allowed a catch. So it seems like they did tie that final play action throw to Cam Akers to Edgerrin Cooper, because that was the 1 catch for 9 yards. So I'm going to watch it on film tomorrow. I do a film review live every Tuesday, and we'll see what the defensive look was and where the blown coverage was. But PFF is tying it to Edgerrin Cooper. But those are all the PFF grades for Week 17. The loss to the Minnesota Vikings, 27-25. Yet another 2-point loss to the Vikings. The game was pretty much out of hand up until 7 minutes in the fourth quarter. And now the Packers head back to Lambeau to finish the season against the Bears. Hopefully can build some momentum in this game, then head into the playoffs and likely head to Philly to take on the dangerous Eagles. If they go to Philly, maybe I'll end up going to that game. I'm not exactly sure. We'll see how everything lines up. They still have a chance to get the 6th seed, depending if the Commanders lose to the Cowboys next week, which isn't likely, but it is a divisional game. But nonetheless, one more week for the Packers to kind of hopefully clean up some of these issues, hopefully get healthier, right? Have Jair potentially get healthier. Evan Williams, Quay Walker, Christian Watson, these are all important pieces once we head into the playoffs. We were without a lot of important pieces last week, or yesterday, should I say. And the Packers likely are going to hold out some of those players yet again here in Week 18 and then have them fully healthy going into the playoffs. But I appreciate you guys coming by to the video. If you did enjoy it, please leave a like down below. I do a PFF review / breakdown every single week. So if that does interest you, go down and click the subscribe button. Reminder to check out BetUS. Use code YouTube150 at sign up for a 150% deposit match on your first deposit. I appreciate you guys coming by. I'll catch you on the next one. And as always, go Pack Go.